Welcome back to the Radical Healing Podcast. I'm your host, Jess Betancourt, and this episode is a little bit of a segue from my guest hosting series. I'm coming up on the 5-year anniversary of when I initially began to change my relationship with alcohol, and I thought it very fitting to offer a sort of retrospective and some things that I've learned on this journey in hopes that you can take what you need from this episode and apply them for yourself and to help move yourself in the direction towards how you want your relationship to be with alcohol. But also, you can look at relationships as templates, right? For relationships with anything, with yourself, with sex, with food, with money, with another person specifically, a relationship with your spirituality. Relationships are patterns that are in a pattern of reciprocation, right? Of giving and receiving, or an imbalance thereof, in a container with another thing or an idea or with a person. And so I have really chosen to look at my relationship with alcohol as an opportunity to learn more about myself and to dig deeper into all the places where I still am unhealed. And so that's why it hasn't been a short and a quick thing. Like, I've had bursts and spurts of things changing quickly, but then also these like longer spans of growth that I can really only see when I pause and stop and look back. Kind of like when you're climbing a mountain, right? You don't see the whole view all at once all the time. You stop and you turn around and you take it all in. So that's what this episode is. This episode is my climbing up this mountain of evaluating and transforming and reframing my relationship with the subconsciously chosen or consciously chosen vice substance of my lifespan thus far, which for me has been alcohol. And if you're a longtime listener of this program, that is likely true for you as well. But if it isn't, you can just insert the thing that co-hosts the relationship of the thing that you want to change. So these are 8 methods that I've identified that have helped completely change my relationship with alcohol for the better in a really empowered way. And that has literally changed my life. And that's why I'm so grateful to have been in this addiction and to have it evolve and devolve and then become deconstructed and remade in the way that it has been and kind of continues to be. Because you might be aware, if you're also a longtime listener of this show, that I didn't place a stamp of sobriety into my path and then try to meet that. I really have made this be something that was very personal and personalized and felt in alignment and still feels in alignment with who I am being at this moment. So what that means is that I didn't, when I realized that my relationship with alcohol needed to change, I also realized and like knew that it wasn't just going to be that I was going to be overnight sober. I still might end up sober, I don't know, but I'm really comfortable and happy with the way that I'm tweaking and shifting, moving it around and staying ahead of it and not feeling like I'm drowning in it, whereas I used to be just completely saturated and avoidant and not wanting to see what really was lying beneath. But in choosing to look at a relationship, you can begin to uncover these layers as you just go deeper and deeper into it, finding new pathways and new techniques and new modalities to help learn more about how you can open up a healing path. Or for myself as a healer and a coach and a therapist, how I can adopt these things and use them in service with other people to help them achieve their own personalized goals of what they want their relationship with alcohol or a vice to be. So, 5 years ago, in 2020, is when this whole thing began. This whole thing being this unfolding path and the reevaluation and the recreation of myself, who I am, who I perceive myself to be in relationship to this substance, to this other thing. So I started drinking alcohol and smoking weed on a regular basis when I was like 12. 12 was when I first tasted alcohol, really, and smoked my first hit of marijuana. And then by the time I was 14, it was pretty regular. And then at 16, I had become addicted to cigarettes and beaties and cloves and hanging out down by the river and smoking in the parking lot at football games. And this just continued to stay with me, this habit. And it all ramped up through my 20s when I was bartending and partying my face off. And then really into my 30s when I met my husband and I got married and I had 4 kids. And I really only started taking breaks from these things to carry my 4 pregnancies. And then pretty quickly picking them up again and resuming them without it looking different. Like I was just older with more things on my plate, but I was ingesting and intoxicating myself pretty much the same. Like maybe some fewer blackouts on a bike dressed as a pirate, a little bit less of that, but like definitely the consistency hadn't changed. And the volume hadn't changed. Well, what did change was that I drank less socially and more just on my own. And that was like what was really bothering me, is how much I was just drinking by myself, isolating myself, couldn't wait for my kids to go to bed. Was fine that my husband just wanted to watch soccer because I could just like go outside and be on my phone or like watch Netflix in my room and just drink a bottle of wine and smoke cigarettes and go to bed at like midnight or 1 as a parent. And that's not entirely that unusual, I think, for this audience, or shocking to hear, but it was really wearing on me. But I'll also say that like my rationale in continuing to do that was that I didn't feel awful. I didn't feel awful all the time. But being some version of hungover or hungover-ish was certainly not uncommon, like at least a few times a month, if not on a weekend basis. But what I remember most, though, now that I can see these things in retrospect, was that I thought about alcohol incessantly, like from when I got up, from when I was, my first thoughts about alcohol when I woke up would be like, oh, I shouldn't have done that last night. Oh, why'd I do that last night? Again and again and again. And then as the day would wear on and I would do things to make myself feel better, then I would come into this circular pattern of starting to talk myself back into drinking later that afternoon and how I was going to go get my wine and drink it that evening. And like that was my mental tape for all of my waking hours. And so even before I had a glass, hi doggy, here's my dog Gaia, had wine in my hand that evening, like I was already manifesting it and putting in so much time and energy and attention into how and when I was going to drink, because I knew that I was going to, no matter how bad I would feel when I woke up. And so that was basically every day for a long, long time. And I just started to notice that I was looking older than I really was, like definitely feeling older than I chronologically was. I would see pictures of myself and be like, damn, I look like I was born in the 50s, like rather than the 80s. And like not only old, but like tired and worn. And like I was wearing all of this stress on my face. And like my habit was just really kicking my ass. Although simultaneously, I just had these cyclical beliefs and patterns of thought that were rationalizing that I needed to do this. I had to do this. I had to, quote, fulfill the prophecy, which was drink a bottle of wine, smoke cigarettes, and then take a bong rip to go to bed. I had to fulfill the prophecy. I needed it. It was my medicine. It was my routine, and I deserved it. And it was my timeout. And it was all these things that I had like really made this solid story around and bought into and believed in. And I remember getting like really defensive about my drinking habits. And these were kind of the red flags that I then started to be honest with myself about. Hi, Gaita. My doggy is so cute. Like once at my house, one of my friends commented that when she microdosed, and she had taken a microdose like before she got to my house, that she thought alcohol looked and felt toxic while I was holding a glass of wine. And I was like, no, no way. Don't say that in my house. Don't say that to me. Like I got mad at her. I was like, it's not toxic. It's like, it's like, it's like a vitamin. It's like a nutrient. Like I had really invested in that line of thinking, so much so that I would get mad at a friend for having a different opinion. And then I remember another time I had not drank for like a couple weeks because I had recently found out that I was pregnant. I mentioned to another friend that was at my house that I was feeling so erratic and emotional, and I was just bawling at the drop of a hat. And I was like, God, is this what it's like to be pregnant? And she kind of casually just remarked that maybe because I hadn't been drinking for a week or two, and I was so used to drinking all the time that maybe my emotions were trying to re-regulate. And I got pissed. I was like, how dare you say that to me? That's not why. And just like this really um, overreactive response to her that I then felt embarrassed about and was like, oh, maybe it's more about me than it is about her. And I also noticed that I had become really self conscious about when I would be drinking because it wasn't always in like a proper place and setting like evening time or restaurants. Like I would put wine in my kid's sippy cup and push her in the stroller to the park and like drink out of her sippy cup because I didn't want to have a more obvious kind of thing like a tumbler with wine in it. And I remember I ran into a neighbor who didn't drink, and I was kind of like pulling back and like didn't want to talk to him and felt so awkward, even though he's a really cool guy. But I was like, oh, I don't want to talk to him. Like, I didn't want him to smell my breath or see my teeth or like notice that I was drinking, during the day, walking through the neighborhood. And so just feeling like this secrecy and like sneakiness about myself. And also I'd be, reading books to my kids or yelling at them to go to bed, depending on my irrational mood and behavior that day, and not wanting to breathe my wino breath on them. And I didn't like that I wanted to check out. I didn't like that I like wanted them to be over there so I could just be over here drinking. And I didn't like that I just wanted everything to go away and that I felt like I didn't have the capacity to manage or handle or to move through life like a responsible adult. Like I really felt deeply inside like I was still this really immature person that needed to drink to cope and to manage and to get through life. And I just didn't like that about me. I didn't like that version of me, even though that was kind of the majority of who I was being the majority of the time. So I really was starting to not like myself. And that I didn't want to deal with it or look at it or try to change it. That kind of went on for a while. But I was starting to recognize that what I needed to change was my drinking behavior. If I really had any kind of higher hopes of living this more fulfilling life that I fantasized about and thought about, but there was always alcohol involved. There was always alcohol around me. But I had just previously, well, let me say it this way, because I had previously been in so much denial and had some criteria about what I wanted to have happen and what I wanted to change or what I wanted to look like when I, accepted that I needed to change my drinking behavior. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew that I didn't want to go into a treatment program or have medication prescribed, because that really wasn't the severity of it wasn't the like level of addiction that I was personally experiencing that would kind of necessitate that sort of route. Um, and I knew that I would not be able to have success, solely using a tracking app, because I felt like that would make me feel maybe even more neurotic. Although those types of tools and those services, they definitely offer utility and support for awareness, but it was not resonating with me. Like none of those things were going to be for me. And I also knew that I didn't want to demonize alcohol, and I didn't want to separate myself from people who were still drinking the way that they were accustomed to, and people who weren't really feeling like they wanted to change, or that they wanted this kind of, evolution for themselves. I didn't want to create distance between me and people that I love who weren't choosing this, uh, like, who weren't choosing this, who weren't choosing change at this time. I really wanted it to be like a sacred thing for me, even though it felt scary and weird, and I didn't know exactly how I was going to do it. So those were really, oh, and I didn't want to have to not be places or not do things just because there would be environments or establishments that I wanted to go to that might have featured alcohol. I didn't want to create restriction on where I could go and who I could hang out with, whether or not alcohol was there. It's like those were really the um, criteria that I knew that I needed to, if this was going to be successful for me. So I was playing around with these ideas, not saying anything to anyone, um, but it was just like rising. Like the thought of this wouldn't leave me. And I knew that I couldn't just say, okay, like now I need to be a sober person, because in my vision of this version of myself, I still wanted to be able to like go to a vineyard or try an artisanal beer that my friend made or drink champagne at a wedding. Like I just didn't want to drink every day. I didn't want to be drinking alone by myself to self-soothe, and I didn't want to feel this compulsion of necessity that wine was like my blankie or my best friend and therefore inseparable from me. I wanted sovereignty and the ability to have long stretches of time, as long as I chose, as much as I wanted, where I could engage my thinking in creative pursuits or really just feel completely present, like nothing was missing. Or to be okay when shit went south, when things weren't fine and great. I really wanted to not feel like I was driving myself to alcohol to try to make it better. I really wanted that to be a false belief. So I kind of like identified these things. I wanted my health and my vitality back, and to sleep better, and to have sex sober, and to feel deeply connected and happy and patient with my kids, because I was being impatient and mean to them and loving them, but so like prickly all the time. I was prickly. And it wasn't fair to them. It really wasn't fair to them, and I really wanted them to have a mom who was present and played with them and had the energy to like do things with them, especially being able to put them to bed in a loving way and to wake up with them in a loving way. And oh, just to feel connected to life, and not have these intruding thoughts that a glass of wine will either make this better or fix what's wrong, or will magically make them stop fighting, or will make my marriage not emotionally challenging, or like I didn't want to believe that alcohol was a great fixer, like a great panacea, because that is what I'd been living in, and I was just really starting to see that as false. So I was like, okay, well, what do I want my new beliefs to be? And I just really wanted to experience life as full. with all of it, not just high vibes only, but like as they come, because life can smacks us around a bit sometimes. And I really wanted to be able to let that move through me without like gripping down so hard and like just breaking because I was so rigid and my my need to control and to check out, control and check out at the same time. Oh, so yeah, I just didn't, nothing's missing. Nothing's missing if wine's not present because it was completely the opposite for so long. And I knew that that was like a facade or a matrix that I wanted to break out of. So yeah, I didn't know how I was going to do it, but this is like along the lines of how I was thinking. So in late 2020, actually summer of 2020, we had just moved here to Spain, and I had taken full liberty of the copious amounts of wine that were available everywhere at everyone's house and in every restaurant and very affordable and freely pouring. And I had thought, like, my dream has come true. I am in a country where the wine flows like water and it's just everywhere and people just give it to you around the clock. And I really was like, I've arrived. I have arrived. I thought it would make me so happy. But here I was one day on the beach with this slight headache and nausea from how much I drank the night before. And I remember my kids were very like clingy to mommy when they were littler, and they didn't want me to leave them with my husband because he was a little bit more like not strict with them, but babies want their mommy, and I had to like pull them off of me and like walk away from them. One of them was crying, which I didn't feel great about, but I needed to make a phone call to my fellow health coach because we had a regular practice session, and she asked me, she was like, well, what do you want to work on today? And I didn't premeditate saying, but I just said, I think that I drink too much. And I was like, whoa. What I thought that I would feel would be shame and remorse and regret for saying and thinking that. But what I actually felt was relief. I felt like this wave of relief that I can't really explain, that I hadn't felt in a long time. And that's how I knew that I was making a truthful step towards an authentic transformation that was in alignment with what my soul was trying to tell me, which was do this, step into this. You don't know what it's going to look like or how it's going to unfold, but like this is what you're to do. And acknowledging that felt really good and scary and weird. That was 5 years ago, and I can tell you with absolute sincere clarity that it is incredibly easy for me today to pass on drinks at any time, which is something that I thought I would never, ever say or do. And I feel more youthful and fun than I have, and I can't even tell you how long. And I'm back to regularly exercising and creating things and working on projects, and I feel in love with my children and my husband, even when they drive me nuts. And through all of our challenging moments, I feel more like me and like the version of me that wants to show up for that manifested all of this, right? Not what there was like a belief that I'm being punished by this kind of family life, but like I had so deeply wanted it and I manifested it. And to really own that as precious and special and sacred and like exactly where I'm supposed to be in life wouldn't really necessarily be my mental state if I were still dousing myself with wine every day. And so it's just been really revolutionary for me. And if you are in the midst of this sort of thing yourself, I am just, this episode's for you. And I hope you can pick and choose from this menu that I'm about to share pieces of it that are maybe like either a first step or the next step for you. So, yeah, so it's like these days, if I do decide to have drinks at a birthday party or what have you, it's just a natural reflex to like go get back on track the very next day with the more inspired programming that I've installed in my life. And what I'm realizing that most is that it could be about drinking or any other form of addiction or habitual pattern that you want to break free from, but it isn't really about the thing itself. It's about who you get to become in the process of getting underneath the surface of that, and like seeing that as a symptom of something else, and then uncovering all of these gems that maybe are painful and tender, but you get to see and learn how to integrate those parts of yourself. And you can really bring forward into your conscious mind and bring it out from the depths and the shadows of your subconscious where it stays hidden, why you had or felt or created the need for that thing in the first place. And it becomes like a holy part of you, that nothing about you is bad or wrong or evil or shameful. It's just these parts of us that need more integrating. We need to integrate these shadow aspects of us so they don't end up running the show and acting out like they're accepted. Come here, I love you. It's more like that sort of thing. It's like, it's okay that you're hurt. It's okay that you're wounded. Whatever happened to you in your past or currently, that it is part of your evolution, and that the tendency of the mind is to kind of segregate and block off these wounded places that aren't all bright and shiny and beautiful that we want to present to the world. But then it's the pain of those parts and pieces that end up reaching for and doing the thing that the rest of us doesn't really want to be doing. And it can end up really running the show. And if you've been in the throes of addiction, then you understand what that feels like. And so the way out is really to go in and excavate and look at and polish and behold. So if you really want to reimagine yourself to change the course and experience of your life, this is really a rewarding pathway. It's not a pathway of punishment. So without further ado, these are the 8 methods that I forged 2 of them together that completely changed my relationship with alcohol and therefore literally changed my life. So number 1 is visibility. And the visibility for me came just by talking about it, by giving voice to it, to a trusted confidant, another person. You don't have to be a public person or make content or material about your journey, of course. I do, because it just felt fitting for who I am and my occupation, but that's not a requirement. But I'm talking about is having this be said, written down, spoken to another person, somehow coming out of your mind and your body in a written or verbal expression of that this is something that you need to change, or calling it out what it is, just like calling it out. In my example, I just said, I think that I drink too much. And it was just a very, felt like a casual to say now, but when I said it, it was like, well, it was like so potent. So to call it what it is, call out the thing that you're wishing to change and not pretending like it's already different. So not sugarcoating it, not saying it in a way that makes you look good, because that's not what it's about. It's about the authenticity of your experience. And so naming that and having it emitted from you is a potent and powerful breakthrough moment. If you haven't done that, that is, to me, in the way that I teach habit change, is an absolutely necessary and pivotal moment to begin this journey. So if you haven't done that, I invite you to. to talk about it with a trusted person, and a therapist or a coach or um, someone who offers support in that way, who's non-biased to you, is ideal. So people who have an agenda for you, or people who maybe want you to be or behave a certain way for their own benefit, might not be the best choice. So you want somebody who will just really hold space for you and hear you and just hear you out, and you can maybe even present it in the way of like, I would like to share something with you, and I don't necessarily need for you to say anything back, or comment if you want. I just need to hear myself say it. I just need a witness to what I want to say. And this person will hopefully say, sure. So somebody like that. That's what I did. That it's really a spell breaker, as words are spells themselves. It comes from spelling. Words are spells, and you can cast spells and also break spells with your words. So I invite you to try it on. If there's not a person available, maybe climb a mountain and shout it to the wind, but call it out. Call out the thing that you are ready to change, and name it in a way that feels resonant when you say it. The second modality that really was like the bigger breakthrough moment was using hypnosis, specifically rapid transformational therapy, which is a regression type of hypnosis that I'm trained in. I had it done for me, a session done for me by a peer with the specific outcome that I wanted to immediately reduce my drinking and to not be obsessive about it. But what it really helped me see was the root cause and the self-limiting beliefs that I was protecting, that I was holding. And I had part of my mental tape was this phrase, I can't handle it. I just can't handle it. I can't handle this. I didn't even know that I was saying that, but I learned in my sessions that I said that all the time. I said it all the time. And it came from my childhood, where my father used to say it, and I adopted that from him and I absorbed it from him. And the solution for I can't handle this being whatever stressful situation I was in, I can't handle it, I just can't handle this, would be to go drink, because then I could handle it. So those two things went hand in hand, and changing that statement, also recognizing where it came from and that it wasn't mine, was immensely relieving to have lifted from me. That it really wasn't, I didn't own that statement. It really wasn't partial to who I was. I had absorbed it. And who knows if my father had absorbed that from his father, his father's father. It was like a long lineage of not being able to handle this and needing or wanting or seeking out alcohol to then be able to handle it. So that was part of the generational phrasing and pattern making that I was able to interrupt, and I'm so grateful for it. And so hypnosis is a really powerful tool that has like phenomenally helped me. I also use it with clients. Predominantly, it's the tool that I use to help clients relax, come back from their conscious mind and the self-talk and the chatter, and to be able to sit back deeper and to go back further into the recesses of the subconscious, so you can piece together clues and make connections that we can't see most of the time because we're in these like overactive doing states. And so to be able to sit with yourself in a safe and sacred and secure container, in a space that's created just for that, can really help you see what you couldn't see before, and help you connect those dots in a way that will be so medicinal and powerful for you. You're welcome to book a session with me, of course, but I also have further back in the chronology of this podcast, there are some meditations that you can tap into and use to help you begin that process of seeing what you previously couldn't see as it relates to how you behave and interact and associate yourself with alcohol specifically. The third thing that has really, really helped me is microdosing protocols. And I use CBD, I also use psilocybin and Amanita muscaria, not all at the same time every day. But these substances are non-habit forming, non-addictive. They don't create these dopamine spikes that alcohol does per se. They're more ritualistic, calm, sacred. Before I take any of those things, I set an intention with it, I pray with it, and it really has helped take the place of ritualistic alcohol use. Plus, it helps regenerate neurons. It helps you grow new neurons. Helps repair your neurons, and it helps you really feel. I mean, for me, it helps me feel calmer. It helps my nervous system feel more smooth. Um, it's also it's like a beautiful partner for meditation practices, and I just really like it. I really feel like it has deeply, deeply helped me. I also feel like I'm in a phase where those things are fading out, like they've served their purpose, and I really am grateful to have used them in a more concentrated fashion over the last couple years. And now I'm in a place where I'm like, oh, they have helped me, and they're no longer really needed right now like they were. So that's a really nice testament in my experience to their non-addictive properties, and that they are more sacred medicine. And when they're taken with that kind of intention, I also take them with the intention of like, especially with Amanita muscaria, when I take that and I hold it in my hands and I bless it and I ask the spirit of this plant to help guide me through this day without feeling compelled to use alcohol. So I'll do something very specific like that. I also have a program for microdosing and hypnosis combined, which you can find at the La Vida Salud link, which should be here in the show notes. And that's the third thing. The fourth thing that I realized that I did do, I don't know if it was quite intentionally, but as I look back, I really, okay, that's what I did, is that I learned more about emotions, what they are, what they do, the language of them, because I used to feel like my emotions were me and that I was just an angry person. I was just angry and I'm not grouchy, and like I was all these things, and I used emotional words as qualifiers or characteristics of my personality. Like I am this way. I am stressed, and like owning that statement, prefacing it with the words I am. And what I learned to do is to speak about my emotions in a way that they were more like weather or an event or something that was transitional or something that was moving through, that was malleable. It was like energy that was coming to me and through me, as opposed to something that I was activating. Learning that there's a language of emotions, that they have messages for us, and they're really informants. They're here to inform us about something that we need to pay attention to, or something within our souls or ourselves, our bodies or our psyches that needs to come forward to receive more healing. And seeing it that way gave me more compassion for myself, rather than, as I said, just saying like, I'm a bitch, maybe not, I don't know. But to give emotions more flexibility in the way that I was even speaking about them helped me feel like when I would get mad, for example, or triggered with into anger, instead of being like, I need a drink to calm this down, I could be like, wow, this is wild. I am feeling so much angry electrical charge right now. Ooh, and like when I would say that in front of my kids, um, well, first so they would know that like it wasn't them that was making me angry. Sure, maybe something they did triggered it, but to make it more of an experiential situation rather than something that needed to be like clamped down on and controlled and manipulated in some way that my ego wanted to do. So, allowing yourself to feel your emotions is really powerful medicine. It's really beautiful. And it becomes, well, for me, it became, and this is also what I coach my clients to do, is to have the perspective of no matter what sort of vibration this emotion has, you're just here to witness it and to allow it to move through you. And when you can do that, or when you practice doing that, it becomes rather exquisite. It becomes, whether or not it was like a desired feeling state or not, it becomes something almost like ethereal, like surreal. And could you imagine? Could you imagine a life without emotions? First of all, like how boring and mundane that would be. So, emotions are what make us feel alive, and they're not really anything that ever needs or wants to be controlled. Plus, we have to digest our emotions, they have to go through a digestive metabolic process, just like our food and liquid things that we consume do. Emotions need to be metabolized by the body. And so, drinking in response to an emotion further traps it and creates this like a metabolic waste inside of our body, and instead of allowing it to be processed and broken down and then excreted, sweated out, cried out, peed out, pooed out, moved out, it wants to be transformed. So I invite you to shift the way that you're thinking about emotions if you are more of an emotionally reactive person when it comes to reaching for the vino or the cervezas. Something else that I discovered, this is number 5, is entity attachment. And I made an entire episode about this. The name of that episode is not coming to me at the moment, but I speak about this experience in more detail, where I, through my research and my reading and the things that I'm interested in and I invest my time in learning about entity attachment made so much sense to me, because I realized that that is what I was experiencing in a part of my body. So entity attachment, just briefly, is alcohol makes our auric field, the protective energetic field around our body, porous, or have holes in it, so to speak. And when that happens, we are more susceptible to other energies or entities coming into our field. And they can attach to us, they can just mess with us, they can come and go, or they stay as long as they want. I don't really know the laws of entity behavior, but I do know that when I read about this, my arm hair was like standing on end, and I felt like the back of my neck shiver, and I just knew that I was having this kind of experience. So my experience was that I had like this dense punching, like sensation on my back of my shoulder, my right side, and it felt like a rock was like in my skin, like a rock the size of a tennis ball, and it was heavy and it had like prickly sensation and almost like tentacle-y feel that would like creep up over my shoulder. It was like the wildest thing. And when I felt this, I felt like I needed to drink. And like the urge to drink was really strong. And I had to like fight it, or I would drink to like make it not do that anymore. And I was just bawling, like crying uncontrollably, this wild emotional ride, these behaviors. And I was like, this is not me. This isn't me. I know this isn't me. I would say that to my husband. I was like, this is something else. And so I had shamanic work done for me to help remove this entity, which that's in fact what it was. And when I had this session, I felt like this retraction, like of, and I had like a visual of a black octopus lifting its arms back and like receding back into deep waters. And I felt this cooling sensation on my back and up my shoulder and my neck that was so relieving. It was just like amazing. And after that happened, that compulsion, that like, yeah, that feeling, like, I gotta drink, that left me and has not returned. And what my practitioner discovered or helped me discover was that that entity attached itself to me when I had been drugged and I don't like the word raped, but like that's what technically that's what happened to my body when I was not conscious. And this entity had entered my field and attached to me at that point, and I was able to connect those dots and allow it to leave me. And it was one of the most incredible experiences. So you feel like you might have entity. I've actually worked with clients who I have been able to discern that they also had entity attachment, and it's really more common than you would want to believe, especially for people who drink often. Because if you can think about this, it makes sense. When your energy, when your spirit or your consciousness is not full in your body, when you're not home, quote unquote, part of your spirit, part of your energy comes out of your body, thus making space for other things to come in. And it makes sense if you think about it. And like, kind of whether or not you believe in it, it might be true. But it was definitely true for me. So having that addressed was absolutely what needed to happen. And I'm so glad that it did. I do not personally do entity attachment, but if you feel like this is you, I can recommend at least 2 or 3 people that are very good at this. And yeah, shit's real. The spirit word's real. Like, let's be real about that. Yeah, we are more porous than we might like to believe. So having entity attachment remedied is number 5. Number 6 is just 6 was a few different things, but I kind of put it under this bigger umbrella of just a deeper journey inward. A deeper journey inward, knowing that everything, or really, training myself to have the conviction that everything that I need is already inside of me. I don't need any one or thing to connect me with God or spirit or source. That is inherent in each of us. And having that at the forefront of my mind and how I want to feel as I move through this world and exist in this universe has helped me immensely. So another thing that I've done, included in number 6 here, is open a direct line of communication with spirit or with source and with my higher self, and not shying away from saying those things, because I used to be adverse to saying these things, kind of like healing from religious trauma. I kind of like shunned this part of me for a while, but coming back into it on my own terms has been so rewarding and enriching. And if you don't have a relationship with your own spirituality, then this is a really lovely place to explore, and so fun. Like, it's really fun. And the fun of it has also helped me feel less inclined to drink, because if I do choose drinking, then I'm way less available for this other kind of connection, this other relationship with spirit. Not that it goes away, we're not severed from it, but it's for me, it's like it's harder to feel connected to it. And so feeling more connected to it really tips the scales with substance use and makes it much less appealing, like way, way down, as expanding consciousness and playing with these techniques and cultivating practices of spirituality goes way, way up. So it's got this inverse relationship, the deeper journey inward. I also, in my communication with spirit, I ask spirit for help. And I used to not do that because I felt like, oh, spirit's not going to help me, or that's not available to me, or the universe doesn't listen. I have adopted the conviction that the universe hears me and that I belong to a loving God and source creator, and that source creator wants to help me. And so I ask to be in alignment. I ask spirit, source, God, creator to help me not think about drinking. Like I just straight up ask for that help from God, if you will. And I feel like it definitely works. So try that one on. But the preliminary step to that is that you would want to open the line of communication between your own spirit self and the greater source of all that is. I would recommend having a line of communication where you can send requests or words or prayers out, but then also making yourself receptive and available for information and messaging and energy to come back into you. Yes. Oh, number 7. Oh, 7 was good. 7 is shadow work and integration. And I think each of these things could kind of be their own episode. So I actually do have a lot to say about shadow work and integration as I'm getting more invested in this type of work. And I would say when I did start doing shadow work and integration, I noticed the shifts much, much sooner and much more tangibly. So it wasn't like I just felt different in my mind, like reality shifted. And it's really amazing. Shadow work, I think I will just kind of do the next episode that I do solo based on shadow work and integration. But essentially, shadow work is what I was alluding to in the beginning of the episode, is connecting with the darker parts of ourselves, of our souls, of our psyches, the parts that we're not like, that we don't walk into formal dinner parties presenting. You wouldn't meet the queen with your shadow self first, but it is really, it's part of being human. It's the polarity of dark and light and masculine and feminine and so-called good and so-called bad. It's like the opposite end of the spectrum and everything in between of the things that we want to present. The things that feel really forthcoming to us, that's kind of easy, I think. It's more these like darker, nitty-gritty parts of us that have kinks and fetishes and desires, and the parts that get repressed and squished and forgotten about or locked away, they actually have positive intention to them. And when the positive intention of these parts of ourselves becomes conscious, when you bring the subconscious conscious, when you bring it forward into the forefront of your mind and you integrate it, meaning you accept it and make it part of the whole, as opposed to a part that's snipped off and put under the rock or under the bed, never to be seen or heard from again. Just be quiet over there, locked in a box. We become more full. We become more enlivened and more enriched. And that doing these types of practices and shadow work and integration has really made me feel like I don't need to hide, and I don't need to hide especially behind alcohol. which is really what has made alcohol feel like a meh instead of a, oh my God, when are they going to open that wine? It's just been sitting there. Is there any more cold beer in the fridge? Like, it has really dissolved that. These are practices that I work on one-to-one with people. There's also some great books out there. I really loved Carolyn Elliott's Existential Kink, which talks about using sacred sexuality to help heal and integrate the shadow aspects of ourselves. I love the work of Layla Martin. If you want to go in looking and investigating for yourself deeper into who I would call experts in this field, the work of Carl Jung and the archetypes and the shadow self, those are all things worth investigating and looking at. And those are the ones at the forefront of my mind that have really helped me better understand this philosophy and this modality and how to work with it. And finally, number 8 has been clearing energy out of my body that is actually trapped emotion. And I've been doing this with a pendulum, actually. So asking my body yes or no questions with the use of a pendulum to locate where on my body. I mean, it's pretty easy to find a trapped emotion if you feel some pains that you can't explain. I just worked with a friend actually yesterday who had this, like, one of her shoulders was really high and her arm was locked, and she could not recall a mechanical or a physical thing that had happened that had made her arm feel this way. But we did some work with muscle testing and penduluming, and we were able to locate an emotion that was trapped in her body that she felt lost, that she had felt without direction or aimless or not knowing what was the proper path for her, and living this way with all of the responsibilities that she had compiled and compounded upon her, and not having a proper compass to help her navigate the things that she was struggling with, manifested in her arm going way up and her not being able to raise her arm fully all the way. That's just one method that you can use. There are many: journaling, tapping, EFT tapping. But if you feel like you have ghost pains or you have not fluid movement of your own personal energy through the energy meridians of your body, it's likely that you have trapped emotions. And if you do use alcohol as a vice of relief for feeling physical discomfort, remedying this can really, really solve the problem of reaching for a drink because you're in physical pain. And my personal example, I had horrible anxiety in my heart space, in my heart chakra, and like in my physical heart. And it would be triggered by me getting angry at whatever, like usually my kids, even though I love them, but like, or my house being messy. I have 4 kids, my dog's running around, like my husband's doing 1,000 things, and he's like super ADD go guy. And like my anger would just fire, and I would feel my heart seize, and then I would try to control everything so that I could feel better. But I did this type of work of emotional energy release on myself, and the difference is I'm just so grateful. It's like undescribable. So I was able to locate the emotion of anxiety that had been trapped in my heart, and when I released it, I haven't felt this heart pain now for weeks, and I was feeling it really, really consistently for like the past year. So these are the things that I've done. Maybe more, maybe I add more later. From this menu, what sparked your interest, or what felt like, oh, maybe that's the thing that would help me get to this next place, or maybe that's the piece that I could play with or practice with or explore deeper. So I would invite you to just try one. Pick one and like go deep with one. And if you've visited a few of these things, then my question to you would be, ooh, what's the one that I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. But then there's also some part of you that's like, yeah, that's the one. And then I would invite you to just edge in that direction and lean up against uh, your border of discomfort around that modality specifically, because that's where the good stuff is just right up against that edge, that border, and that periphery. And when you can just like smooth yourself up against it, you realize that it's quite flexible. It's not a wall, it's something that is malleable. And when you start moving out these edges on the places of yourself, you do feel more full, full of life and full of potential to actualize and do the things that you want to do in this lifetime, because it's important that we're here. I've realized, like, we're not here for nothing. I just really can't buy into that. And you're here for some sort of special magic that only you can do. So if the vices are in your way, take my advice and try on one of these 8 modalities. I'm so excited to offer something new that I've been cultivating and kind of sitting on, but I now feel fully ready to offer. And it is a space for a one-to-one experience for 1, maybe 2 people per year who would like to go on a similar journey of unfolding and recreating themselves over the course of a year. So I'll stay with you as your guide, your space holder, your sacred space holder, your non-judgmental coach and therapist over the course of a year as this unfolds for you. And as you come up against the things that were buried and that you might not know how to reckon with, as someone who has been there, I will hold this space for you, and I will hear you, and I will witness you, and I will share all of the medicine that I have with you so that you can come through the other side feeling amazing, feeling capable, feeling like not only can you handle this, but you've totally got this, and that you're in a place where you can really thrive. So we will work intimately with healing trauma, releasing addiction and obsessive thoughts and tendencies, clearing emotional blocks, deepening relationships, or calling one in. I did that actually specifically. I manifested, MAN capital, manifested my Spanish husband to a T. If that's something you're interested in, that is something that I also am capable of teaching you how to do for yourself, and how to cultivate a lifestyle of work, life, and play balance without the perceived need for alcohol to take things away or to make something good even better. That's the journey that I'm inviting you on. If you feel called to it, then I invite you to please fill out the application below in the show notes. And I'll be in touch, and we can set up a time to say hi and see if it's a good fit for both of us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for being here. Big virtual hug to you. Go make yourself something really yummy to drink that's got ice and mint and lemon and a little scoop of magnesium powder. And mwah. I hope you have a beautiful and so just like a soulful day. And I'll see you again next week.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.